Welcome to Whispers in the Dark. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, and check out the amazing products in the description. Now enjoy the story.
I never thought anything could make me give up my love for the Florida forests. I grew up exploring those places. I knew every trail, every swamp, or at least I thought I did. What happened in Everglades National Park last month destroyed any sense of security I had. I still wake up sweating in the middle of the night, smelling that peculiar scent of damp earth and moss. I'm telling this now because I need someone to know, someone to understand why remote areas of the park need to be closed. Maybe that way more people won't end up like me, or worse, like my friend Tyler. I've been a trail guide for almost a decade. I know the Everglades like the back of my hand. That week, I had planned a 5-day expedition with a small group, me, Tyler, my trail partner since college, and a couple from California, Mark and Rebecca, who wanted to experience the real wild South, as they called it. We chose a less frequented area, a remote section of the park where tourists rarely go. The plan was simple: go in on Thursday, return the following Tuesday, photograph wildlife, and camp under the stars. The first day went exactly as we planned. The weather was perfect, clear skies and a gentle breeze that kept the mosquitoes away. We navigated the canals in our kayaks, watched alligators basking on the swampy banks, and set up camp on a small dry rise surrounded by cypress trees. Mark kept talking about how everything felt authentic and untouched. Little did he know just how untouched by civilization that place really was. On the second night, I started to notice small things out of place. Strange marks on the trees that didn't seem to have been made by animals I knew. Muffled sounds coming from the denser areas of the swamp that didn't match any local creature. I mentioned it to Tyler when we went to collect firewood, but he shrugged it off, saying it was probably some wild boar that had settled in the area. I accepted the explanation, although something inside me remained uneasy. During the night, I woke up with a feeling of unease. I looked at my watch, 3:15 a.m. The fire was almost out, just embers glowing faintly in the darkness. I strained my ears and then realized what had woken me: silence. An unnatural, oppressive silence. In the Everglades, even at night, there are always sounds: crickets, frogs, the movement of water, the rustling of leaves. But at that moment, nothing. As if the entire forest was holding its breath. I got up silently, grabbed my flashlight, and took a look around the campsite. Tyler and the others were sleeping soundly in their tents. I pointed the beam of light towards the nearby tree line, and that's when I saw, or thought I saw, movement. Something big moving among the cypress trees. Could be a black bear, I thought, although it was unusual to see them so deep in the swamps. I decided not to wake anyone. Years of experience had taught me that most wild animals avoid humans. I went back to my tent, but slept restlessly for the rest of the night. The next morning, while making coffee, I noticed footprints in the mud near the swamp's edge. Humanoid footprints, but different. Larger than any normal human footprint, with a strange toe configuration. At first, I thought they were partial prints left by one of us, distorted by the soft mud, but the more I looked, the more disturbing they seemed. I called Tyler over to take a look. He frowned as he examined the footprints, but tried to look unconcerned when Mark and Rebecca approached. We didn't want to scare them. He said they were probably from illegal hunters, although we both knew that hunters wouldn't walk barefoot through a swamp infested with venomous snakes and alligators. We decided to break camp and head to our next stop, a few miles east, closer to an area patrolled by park rangers. During the hike, Tyler came closer and told me in a low voice that he had heard strange stories from local fishermen about creatures they called Biloko. He said it was some imported legend, possibly brought by Caribbean or African immigrants who worked in the swamps decades ago. Humanoids covered in fur, violent, who protected the deep parts of the forest. I laughed, though without much conviction. Tyler always had a fondness for local folklore, but I was more pragmatic. If there was something following us, it was human or a known animal, nothing more. We reached the new campsite around 4 in the afternoon. It was a beautiful spot, with a small clearing surrounded by palm trees and ancient cypress trees. Mark and Rebecca were delighted, taking pictures and commenting on the wild beauty of the place. We set up the tents, prepared a larger-than-usual campfire, and had dinner as the sun slowly set through the trees. It was during the night that everything changed. I woke up startled by a sharp scream from outside. I grabbed my machete and got out of the tent in seconds. Rebecca was near the campfire, pale and trembling. When I approached, she pointed to the darkness beyond the trees and said she had seen something moving, something big walking on two legs, but it moved too fast to be human. Mark came out of their tent, trying to calm her down, saying it was probably just a curious animal. Tyler appeared beside me, holding his most powerful flashlight. Without a word, he pointed the beam in the direction Rebecca had indicated. For a moment, we saw nothing but shadows and dense vegetation. Then, something reflected the light, two eyes, at least 7 feet off the ground, glowing among the leaves. They weren't alligator eyes or any other animal I know. They were eyes that watched with a disturbing intelligence. Instinctively, I raised my machete. Tyler grabbed his gun. He always carried one for emergencies, although I preferred to rely on my knowledge of the terrain. The eyes disappeared as soon as Mark joined us. We decided to stand guard for the rest of the night, taking turns in pairs. Mark and I took the first shift while Tyler tried to calm Rebecca inside the tent. I'll never forget the conversation I had with Mark that night. He was a scientist of some kind, a marine biologist, I think. At first, he tried to rationalize what we saw, suggesting it might be some sick bear, maybe rabid. But when I showed him the footprints I found near the previous campsite, which I had photographed with my cell phone, he fell silent for a long time. Finally, he told me that in the weeks before the trip, he had researched the Everglades and found references to strange sightings in online forums. Accounts from local guides and hunters about a creature similar to a man, but larger and covered in thick fur, that moved with incredible agility through the swamps. Most dismissed it as urban legends or misidentified bears, but some accounts were disturbingly detailed and came from people with decades of experience in the forests. Our shift ended without incident, and we woke up Tyler and Rebecca to take over watch duty. I tried to sleep, but my mind kept going back to those eyes in the darkness. There was something about them that didn't seem animal. There was a calculated malevolence that left me deeply disturbed. The fourth day dawned with a thick fog over the swamp. Mark suggested we turn back immediately, abandoning the rest of the expedition. Rebecca quickly agreed, still visibly shaken from the previous night. Tyler seemed hesitant, almost curious about what might be watching us, but agreed that safety came first. We started to break camp. That's when I noticed my backpack had been opened and rummaged through. Nothing seemed to be missing, but it was different from how I had left it. Tyler checked his belongings and found that his Swiss Army knife was gone. A chill ran down my spine. Whatever the creature was, it had gotten close enough to rummage through our things while we slept, despite the campfire and watch. We decided to leave immediately. I chose an alternate route that would take us through more open paths, avoiding densely wooded areas. We progressed well for the first few hours, keeping a fast pace, all alert to any unusual movement or sound. Around noon, we stopped briefly to eat something and check the map. That's when we heard it for the first time, a sound that still haunts my nightmares. A kind of distant cry or howl, neither fully human nor completely animal. A vocalization that seemed to carry anger and territoriality. Mark asked if it could be some kind of ape, maybe escaped from a zoo or kept illegally as a pet. I knew it wasn't. Nothing I knew made that sound. We quickened our pace, abandoning any pretense that this was just a normal hike. With every mile, I felt like we were being watched, followed. The sun began to dip below the horizon, and I realized we wouldn't make it out of the swamp before nightfall. We would have to camp one more time. I chose the most open and exposed location I could find, a small elevated island with few trees and visibility in all directions. We started setting up the tents quickly, with the sun already setting. Tyler suggested we make several small campfires instead of one large one, forming a perimeter. It was a good idea, most predators fear fire. Night fell, and with it came that unsettling feeling of being trapped in a nightmare slowly unfolding. Rebecca barely spoke, her eyes constantly scanning the distant tree line. Mark tried to maintain a facade of calm, but his hand trembled when he lit the matches for the fires. Tyler was different, alert, but almost excited, as if he were on the verge of an extraordinary discovery. Around 8 o'clock, we heard that sound again, closer this time. Tyler grabbed his gun and suggested we go investigate. I looked at him like he was crazy and said no one was going anywhere, that we would stay together. Mark agreed with me emphatically. But Tyler argued that we needed to know what we were facing, that knowledge was power. I should have been firmer. I should have insisted, maybe even threatened to tie him up if necessary. But I let Tyler take his flashlight and gun, promising he would only go to the tree line and be back in 15 minutes. That was the last time I saw him alive. 10 minutes after Tyler disappeared into the darkness, we heard a gunshot. Then another. Then a scream that chilled my blood. It wasn't fear, but pure, sharp pain. I grabbed my most powerful flashlight and the machete and ran in the direction of the gunshots, shouting Tyler's name. Mark came right behind, carrying one of the tent stakes as an improvised weapon. We pushed through the undergrowth for about 100 yards, guided only by the beams of our flashlights, calling out for Tyler desperately. That's when we found his flashlight on the ground, still on, pointing at a tangle of bushes. The gun was a few feet away, with 2 spent cartridges beside it. There was no blood, no sign of a struggle beyond the trampled vegetation, as if something heavy had passed through there quickly. Mark suggested we go back to camp, that we seek help. It was the sensible thing to do. But I couldn't abandon Tyler. I shouted his name repeatedly, pointing the flashlight in all directions. That's when I saw him. Not the creature, but Tyler, or what was left of him. His body was hanging from a cypress tree about 20 yards from where we were, suspended by something I couldn't identify in the darkness. I ran towards him, ignoring Mark's shouted warning. When I got closer, the flashlight revealed the full scene, and I fell to my knees. Tyler was hanging by ropes made of vines and creepers, skillfully interwoven like a net, suspending him about 10 feet off the ground. His body was altered. I can't fully describe what I saw. Parts of him were missing. They had been torn off, not cut. As if the creature wanted to send us a message. I felt Mark pulling my arm, shouting that we needed to get out of there. Then I heard that sound again, very close now, followed by the sound of branches breaking under heavy footsteps. I turned the flashlight towards the noise, and that's when I saw it for the first and only time clearly. Standing less than 30 feet away, partially hidden behind a cypress tree, was the Biloko. Tall, well over 7 feet, covered in a thick dark coat of fur that moved slightly in the night breeze. The creature stood on 2 legs, with long, muscular arms ending in hands with prominent claws. But the face was the most disturbing thing. It was almost human in structure, but distorted. The jaw was larger, more pronounced, with exposed teeth that reflected the flashlight beam. And those eyes, large, dark, intelligent, fixed on me with a predatory intensity. I don't remember running. Mark later told me he pulled me with all his strength and that we ran frantically back to camp. The creature didn't pursue us immediately, it seemed more interested in its prey. We reached the campsite and found Rebecca crying hysterically. She had heard the screams. There was no time for explanations. I grabbed the emergency flare from my backpack and fired it, knowing that probably no one would see it, but we needed to try everything. We took only the essentials, water, machetes, flashlights, and started moving. We abandoned the tents, the sleeping bags, everything else. We hiked all night without stopping, moving as fast as the terrain allowed, lit only by the flashlights and the partial moon. With every sound in the forest, my heart felt like it would jump out of my throat. Rebecca cried silently. Mark remained stoic, but his face was as white as paper. At dawn, we finally reached one of the park's main trails. Exhausted, dehydrated, and traumatized, we kept walking until we found a group of tourists with a guide. their expressions when they saw us said it all. We must have looked like survivors from a war zone. Park authorities found Tyler's body a few hours later, after I gave them approximate coordinates. The official report says he was the victim of a wild animal attack, probably a black bear. No one believed our story about the Biloko. Mark and Rebecca returned to California that same week, refusing to talk about the matter any further. I tried to explain what we saw to the park rangers, show them the photos of the footprints, describe the creature, but I was politely dismissed, treated like someone in shock who was confusing reality with folklore. But I know what I saw. I know that there is something in those remote parts of the Everglades that isn't in biology textbooks. Something that the natives knew and feared, something that is now claiming territory as its habitat shrinks due to human expansion. I never went back to the trails. I sold my equipment, moved to a big city, and now I work in an office. Sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I still see those eyes watching me from the darkness. I still hear that sound, that howl that was neither human nor animal. If you are planning a trip to the Everglades, stick to the marked trails. Don't camp in remote areas, no matter how experienced you are. There are things in the depths of those swamps that should not be disturbed. Tyler learned that the hard way. I was lucky to escape with my life, but the mental scars will never fade. And if one day, while on a secluded trail, you feel a sudden, oppressive silence in the forest, if you notice that all natural sounds have ceased as if nature itself is holding its breath, don't stay to find out why. Run. Run and don't look back. Because the Biloko may be watching, waiting, protecting its ancestral territory in the only way it knows how, with ruthless and calculated violence.
We've reached the end of our story. What did you think? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to follow the channel, like the video, and check out the amazing products in the description. And don't miss the next video, you're going to love it.